Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure
okay.
that. Comencem, sí? Com... Vale. Molt bé, bona tarda, benvingudes i benvinguts a la sessió d'aula mediterrània, que per nosaltres és un plaer que sigui a la Universitat de Girona, perquè el màster en moviments migratoris que portem des d'aquí doncs, és la primera edició que col·labora en aquesta aula mediterrània de l'Institut d'Estudis de la Mediterrània. For us it's a pleasure to have Professor Hanafi today with us. Professor Hanafi is professor of sociology at the American University of Beirut, where he's director of the Center for Arab and Middle Eastern Studies and chair of the Islamic Studies program. He served as president of the International Sociological Association from 2018 to 2023, very recently. And Professor Hanafi is the author of numerous journal articles and book chapters on the sociology of religion, the connection between moral philosophy and the social sciences, the sociology of forced migration as applied to the Palestinian refugees, and the politics of scientific research and the production of knowledge. His recent books include the study of Islam in the Arab world, the rupture between religion and the social sciences, that soon will be translated into the Spanish as well, as you explained to us.
No, not this book.
Another one.
It's a forthcoming book.
Okay.
It's a first-coming book against symbolic liberalism, a plea for dialogical sociology. It will be in Spanish, hopefully in 4 months.
We will have soon the pleasure to read this book and others as well in English, of course. And also he has also collaborated with other collective books, the Oxford Handbook of the Sociology of the Middle East, for example, edited some while ago. Finally, just as a note, in 2019 he received an honorary doctorate degree, the honoris causa, from the National University of San Marcos in Peru. And just without further ado, we welcome you at the University of Girona. Professor Hanafi, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oscar, for your presentation and chairing this panel. But I would like to thank Eduard Carrera for his invitation, Elisabetta Ceccaroli. She is very kind in all the communication about everything. So let me start. Okay, so I would like today to talk, to zoom out about what do we have about migration trends, and then zooming into Mediterranean area before talking about specifically the question of integration of migrant in relation to religion and secularism. So this is the menu for today. If you go back to actually the same person, Guterres, who once said that the 20th century was a century of refugees. But later on, maybe 2 years later, he announced 21st century is one of the global conflict and the human displacement. So actually, it looks like business as usual. I mean, unfortunately, in the last of 2 centuries of forced displacement. So if we look the recent data we have around 122 millions forcibly displaced worldwide. But as you see, the biggest chunk is the IDP, internally displaced people. So this is, if you like, the good news is not all across the border among them. But as you see, that the number is really alarming. So from where they come from, as you see, they come from Africa, they come from Asia, and of course with Ukrainian crisis or the Russian invasion to Ukraine, we have also a sudden movement from Ukraine. But also you find in Latin America, as you see, it's also there is a movement. The country who hosts refugees, you see Europe, but Africa again, it's a sending and receiving country, and also the Asia is also the same thing, receiving and hosting refugees. until 2009, if you like, you have a kind of a friendly policy, if I would say, that you have a movement of refugees and displaced people, and in fact find refugee solutions. You know, when we talk about refugee solutions, it's whether settling in the host country or returning to the place of origin or repatriation to the third country. So you have the green you have the green one. You see, this is the refugee solution, and this while we see that starting from 2009, you have much more new recognitions and temporary protection than refugee solution. For instance, most of the Syrian refugees in the last 10 years has been under temporary protection status and not refugee status. The same thing for Jordan and Lebanon. In fact, let me make it clear that the low and middle income countries is really the main receiver of this forced migrants. So 71%, and the country where I live in Lebanon, as you see, it's the second country in receiving one over 6 person there are refugees, whether Palestinian or Syrian refugees, and you have in Latin America, you have in Africa, Chad, for instance, and Jordan again in the Arab world. If we zoom in the Syrian tragedy, I'm so glad that Syrian regime has been toppled, and hopefully it will be return of Syrian refugees. But so far, when in 2019, the major movement, as you see, it's in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Turkey, much more than you see in Europe. So, in fact, the quality of hosting Syrian refugees is not the same like in Europe. Here, the biggest camp, I would say worldwide, it's in Irbid area in Jordan, receiving Syrian refugees here in Idlib, and in Lebanon and other place. So also we should, in fact, this hosting and receiving should not hide that it's because the border is closed that you have amazing number of deaths recorded in the Mediterranean Sea. So in the I look to the statistics of last 10 years, you have 37,000 missing in this sea. Okay, so alone, if we take last year is 2,300 around. In fact, also what is new is not anymore the movement is a conflict or violence induced displacement, but disaster one and environmental crisis, if you like, global warming, and so, and it's amazing to look to the figure to see that really it's almost more 3 times more environmental induced displacement than conflict displacement. So if we take the famous year 2015, 2016, where everybody cry that avalanche of refugees into Europe. Let's see, in fact, EU grant asylum and resettle only 720,000 refugees, but in fact it's 3 times more than this classical countries of hosting, Australia, Canada, and United States combined. But again, as I said, we have much more south-south movement than south-north one. Just to give example, 7.5 million migrants in West and Central Africa. Cote d'Ivoire alone host 2.2 million, and Burkina Faso, very poor countries, is almost the same number like the Europe. So in fact, what I argue that in order to understand why we talk about migrant crisis, if you look to the media coming from the left or the right or the right or far right, you see how the migration topic is a central. So I will provide here specific. I will zoom into a question of religion and secularism as really induce this discourse on crisis on migration. So and of course the overarching things is identity politics. Again, just to introduce the topic, is we can talk about the crisis of secularization. Secularization doesn't vanish religion as many sociologists thought. Religion become very important as a helping a migrant for social cohesion between them, but also migrant religion transform the religious landscape. You have so much diversity of churches because of that. For instance, if I take Christianity as example, but also religion can be source of xenophobia. But what 2 German scholars, they wrote an amazing book, Streb and Klein, in 2018 about xenosophia. I mean, wisdom of the wisdom, creativity, and inspiration that emerge from the encounter with the stranger and the strange religion. So what one thinks is really very interesting in this book is to show that they analyze many surveys, particularly in Germany, about the attitude of German people toward the hosting refugees and migrants. So we see that the trend go with the religiosity. So the more you are religious, the more you are hospitable until certain point. Once you become, if you like, very religious, where the hospitality go down. So it's a very interesting. So you have a threshold. So if you like, religious people, according to these 2 authors, is more hospitable, but not when they are very religious. I mean, to summarize it like this. So, so of course, I think the big elephant in the room is the surge of the Islamophobia. Islamophobia become really me who read a lot of history, read about the anti-Semitism, how it was horrible in many places worldwide, including in Europe. I see almost the same discourse, the same manifestation that you find in Europe in a different degree, of course. Needless to say that it's it come with identity politics. It come with as a cultural phenomenon, the crisis of not accepting the culture of other, but also to be fair, that it's also galvanized with the strike, with the terror attack of ISIS, the terrorist group who were in Mosul and in Raqqa in Syria. But if you look to the number of casualties among population, local population, I mean, including Muslims, is much more than the few attacks of ISIS in Paris, in Barcelona, in London, and as such. So, in fact, this is what I argue, that if I talk particularly about France, I did my PhD in France. I'm within French academia somehow. I'm often invited and reading the newspaper almost every day, French newspaper. I would say the crisis is when you saw those who used to saw them as cleaning in the street and domestic worker become engineers, a medical doctor, and those with whom, I mean, they are interlocutor. I mean, I would say the crisis started from here, especially when those engineers, medical doctors, instructors, etc., refuse to be assimilated, and they want so they want to be integrated, but not assimilated. And of course, the media is playing a major role here in galvanizing this, but again, it's not only the media. Let me give you this anecdote. While I was doing my PhD à l'École des études en sciences sociales in Paris, that I have a colleague, an anthropologist. He has an appointment. He's Tunisian. He has an appointment with his supervisor. I will not mention her name. And so she didn't come to the appointment, and the secretary asked him to call her at home. So she told him that she is under weather, a little bit tired. So why asking him to come so that they have a lunch and talk about his thesis. When she told her with pleasure to come, but I'm fasting, she just told him, you cannot be an anthropologist and fast, and she closed the phone. So this kind of reaction, I would say, very telling how some I'm very careful with my words. Some social sciences in France is very anti-clericalist and anti-religion, if you like, in this. And if you take a guru, an outstanding sociologist of religion, Danielle Hervé-Léger, in her book, I think, Religion en miettes, something like that. It's amazing, this book, because she talk positively about religion, but say religion is for birth, for funeral, for ceremony of marriage. If more than that, it become sectaire in French, very pejorative. It become against the social cohesion. It's very clearly. And of course, she is talking about Muslim religiosity in France. So this is why, if you like, I mean, again, Danielle Hervé-Léger, another, they come from the left. They don't come at all from far right wing or right wing even. So So I would argue that there is a convergence of the left and the right on Islamophobia and on this a kind of anti-clericalist secularism. So if you like, this is why I move to say that it's very classic and easy to say, look, this Catholic, they don't like the other religion, etc. But my talk from now on to show that in fact the problem is not from necessarily, it can be another problem from a certain religiosity in a group versus out group, but what I will focus here about secularism, how it's exclusionary to migrant, but also not only to migrant, but if you like. So again, in the introduction, I talk about my forthcoming book is called Against Symbolic Liberalism, I believe for dialogical sociology. So I work something called symbolic liberals, how liberalism has been violated by in its own camp, is by the liberals who become classically liberal. It means that they believe in the values of universality of the human rights, of the individual rights, of etc., but politically illiberal. And when I talk about politically illiberal, I refer to the magistral work of John Rawls, the American moral and political philosopher, in his book particularly Political Liberalism, where he argued that society should agree on the conception of justice. This is very important. Conception of justice means that we agree not to discriminate with any category at the basis of race, religion, gender, etc., sexuality, but also allowing the conception of the good to be to the individual and to the community. Actually, he didn't say community, but later on other liberals, developed this. So state should not interfere in the conception of the good. So what is the conception of the good is what I will address, what I will drink, I will pray, I will not pray, I have a religion, I am atheist, etc., etc. All this is a conception of the good. So so it's a very interesting, for instance, that to observe two phenomenon related to the public sphere, like the presence of religion and the presence of sexuality, and to see our late modernity how moved that sexuality from the private sphere into the public spheres. Again, I'm not normative here. I'm not saying this is good, this is bad, just to show you the trend, while forcing the religion to stay in the private spheres. And this will create a clash of those who conservative, who think why they can do their parade and we cannot do our parade as a religious, if you like, activities in the public sphere. So all this is, if you like, in a chilling climate of societal polarization and intolerance. I don't need to convince you about that. Look to in bastion of liberal democracy, like in United States, how election has been contested, and if you like, all this campus we saw about the genocide on Gaza, and how those who critique usually we say, yeah, you cannot say this word, you can't, but now it's no. It's if you criticize Israel, you are anti-Semitic. It's a very polarized. So in this, if you like, here what I'm trying to say that now our crisis of liberal democracy, this liberals who are who violate the political liberalism, are also source of, if you like, is a factor, I would say, one of the major factors why we have the far right wing, why we have the populism. So the populism cannot be explained by what kind of discourse this populism is using, etc. But we wanted to see why, how come Giorgia Meloni got, we know the third of left electorate, traditional left electorate in Italy. So is there a problem with the message of these people? So I'm talking about symbolic liberalism, which we find it in all sectors, but also in social sciences. And here where it's come my mission as a sociologist is to say where our social science sociology is heading if really we become one of the bastion of this symbolic liberalism. So I go back to the question of secularism. So first of all, I think I don't play with the importance of secularism. Secularism is extremely important as an inherent part of any liberal project. And when I say liberal project, of course, every time I talk in France, so I don't know in Spain if there is a misunderstanding when I talk about liberalism, but in France, I should make a lot of caveat. I say it's not economic liberalism, it's about the balance between freedom and equality. So this is what liberal thought. Liberal thought is the universality of human rights, it's individual rights, etc. So if you like, for me, secularism in a liberal project should have two components: a safe and principled distance. This is Rajiv Rohava, the Indian scholar, used this word, principled distance between religion and the state. So it's not really separation, total separation. Or religion and politics, if you like, and minimal state neutrality. Something, if you read the amazing book of Cécile Laborde, a French philosopher who is based on Oxford, because being in France, she cannot write her book, the liberalism religion, religion of liberalism. So the relationship between religion and liberalism is a fantastic book, by the way. So in the line with Cécile Laborde, we need to disaggregate religion into multiple normative dimensions. So some dimension related to conception of justice, and other is a conception of the good. If a religion order to hit a woman, this is a conception of justice, and I think a state should stop any call for violence against women, for instance. But drinking, fasting, dressing, all this is conception of the good. So we need to disaggregate the religion into etc. And in order to see what is not in incompatibility with the state, with the politics. So no need to say we separated, we put it in the private sphere. So in nutshell, secularism is simply a mechanism to reach the liberal project and not a value by itself. So so this is why there is a multi-secularity, like the German laboratory in Leipzig, who work about different, each country should conceive a kind of a mechanism to save the liberal project. So, so again, this mean, and the problem again of symbolic liberals, that they show intolerance of religion in the public spheres, and they view religion too core, outdated. And in fact, they treat the religion as a separate social spheres or spheres in society. I mean, you have the secular, where in charge of the political, the economic transaction, the social relationship, and the religion for funeral, birth, and ceremonies. So, in a nutshell, I will try really to not to take much time because I'm interested in discussion. So I will quickly take 5 features of symbolic liberals secularism. First, if you like, particularly I will talk about France, but every time I do presentation and they told me, look, it's not the France, it's Belgium, it's Denmark, it's like this, it's Sweden started taking this, etc. So unfortunately, the Quebec also is taking this French model. But for me, the French model that I study is really, it's clear that the problem first by defining what is a religion. Religion is seen as ritual. You go to the church, or individual belief, so conscience. So it's stay very individual, very private. So outside the church, on the inner self, should be no religion. So a woman with a veil in the public spheres, it looks like she is proselytizing its religion. So the problem is really they defined religion in the Christian reformist conception of religion. And again, it's not a Catholic. It's not. I still remember in 1995, I went to Greece and traveled for 15 days, and I struck how much Greek women put veil. I mean, so this is old, 30 years old. I think it's much less now. But it's a Catholic country like France is really adopt a reformist conception of the religion. And I think you can refer to Talal Assad, to Jean Bebro, for instance, who wrote a lot about this. So, in fact, this is, if you like, symbolic liberals, and including among sociologists. I mean, I have a quote from many sociologists who really you feel like they become mufti or faqih. I mean, they know about Islam. They know the veil is not part of the Islam. Okay, so it's not your business. I mean, even me, Muslim, I cannot really say this. I mean, I'm not necessarily in favor, but I cannot say this is not part of the religion. And again, to consider it like a slave for the woman, etc. So, and again, you can say it's a slave to the woman, but you cannot impose how. I mean, the basic lesson of sociology of zero, is to tell you that you need to see how the social actor conceive their action, their behavior, and not you impose your interpretation of this. So, so if you like, we know the French headscarf ban in 2004, so I think we can have a different interpretation. But I love the work of the American philosopher Martha Nussbaum in her book Hiding from Humanity, discussed shame and law, showing that the problem when, I mean, everyone has a feeling of disgust, okay, and it's we have the right to be discussed about anything we like. Okay, but you cannot legify a law based on your disgust. This is, and all the book of Nussbaum based on her fieldwork in the United States, showing that how we do this and how condemnable to legislate based on subjective rejection of the other action. And my feeling really that French majoritarian, cultural majoritarians, they discussed about veil, about a more burqa, burkini, and abaya, long dress, and this is why they keep every day. You have every day, I exaggerate, every month you have something about a law. Even this morning, I watching the news. You know, in France, you have so many football club for women, and apparently there is only 11 veiled women wanted to play sport. My God, with their veil. So the Minister of Interior, who wanted to make a law, to propose a law, and the Prime Minister say it's not the good time to do it, and he threatened to resign. Okay, so just to show you how Islamophobic all this legislator in France and politicians that they play with this. So so again, really, I see compared to UK, USA, Canada, Australia, is much more accommodating religious expression than in Europe. So there is a specific things in Europe. Just to give you another example of when it was a campaign about beauty is diverse, as a freedom is in hijab, as you see here, the France asked to withdraw this campaign right away. Only France who asked this, and so claim if we take one of the Islamophobic anthropologists in France, Florence Berger-Blacquart, she argued that the campaign romanticized veil, claim it ignored violence against women who don't wear veils. I do understand this is in Afghanistan, but is it in France? Is it in Spain? And something like that. So again, I fully agree with Jean Bibero, who wrote 3 books about French secularism, new secularism, argued that there is a secular identity which transforms Islam into a religious alien to European culture, portray Islam as incompatible with democratic values. I put the face of Sarah al-Huri, whose mother is veiled, but nevertheless, she, as a socialist, this is the one who asked the campaign to be removed. She is I think, member of European Union, of the Parliament. The second, as I said, secularism is not a value by itself. It's a mechanism, but in France, it's really a value by itself. It's conflating the conception of the justice with the conception of the good. I think across in the street in Europe is absolutely part of the historical landscape of the heritage. Is not religious symbol. Across in a public school, it's if you like, it's not. It's something that should be contested. So if you like, it's not that we need to see context how religious symbol is very related to a context, and we need to understand the context in order to say this is should be banned or not. So and again, when people do their moral reasoning about anything, we cannot tell them that religion should not be part of their public reasoning. If you refer to Maeve Cook, an Irish philosopher who developed something called non-authoritarian practical reasoning, there is a way of uttering your reasoning not to make it authoritarian, no matter whether this reasoning is a secular or religious. Again, I don't have time to extend here. Just to give you example from, I came from Lebanon. In Lebanon, you have multiple confessional court for personal status. When I say personal status, it means that birth, funeral, death, marriage, inheritance, mainly this issue. So so I did a survey among 350 students, young, okay, from my university and other Lebanese university, and it struck me that around 2/3 they are in favor of keeping confessional courts. So confessional courts, basically, one can argue this is inherent against secularism. But what I argue, I mean, when I ask other questions to the students, it's clear this student accommodate a certain secularism while they want this confessional court to stay. They want their marriage to be sanctioned by a religious authority. They want they want interference of the religion. So how can we do, if you like, confessional court in the same time claiming secularism? I think it is possible if we do two things. First, that no one should be forced to go to confessional court. So you need to create civil courts. So anyone can do exit and go from Lebanese, from a Sunni, Shiite, Maronite, Catholic, Orthodox court into the civil court. The second condition, that the state who is the custodian in liberal thought of the conception of the application of conception of justice, of protecting the universality of human rights, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, can interfere in any court when there is they seem that there is a violation of the conception of justice that the Lebanese agreed on it. So if you do like this, you can claim in the same time people feel that they are attached in a communitarian way, but in the same time not violating the liberal project, if you like, or a certain conception of secularism. Third, it's again, as I said before, there is a weaponization of secularism against the minority religion, specific religion. So laws, one after one, the football, the French Football Federation, they ban interrupting matches for Ramadan fast breaking for 1 minute, just to have a date and a water. It's so funny that the Minister of Education a few years ago, she banned during Ramadan a long dress. Although long dress is anyone have a dress. I mean, long dress is part of any dress. But I mean, she used this concept religious symbol by destination. Okay, so what the meaning of that? I mean, anything can be by destination. I can interpret anything someone dressed at this destination means something. If I put a kufiya, somebody will come and say this is a symbol by destination is anti-Semitic. Okay, so it's absolutely no legal or even moral reasoning basis of that. Again, if you, I love the book of Olivier Roy, L'aplatissement du monde, flattening of the world, where he talk about against the extension of the domain of the norm, law about everything. For 11 women doing sport, we do law. And he also warned against shrinking public space for negotiation, debate, and dialogue. Fourth, secularism, French secularism, forbid religious minority to moralize public actions. There is a hunting war against what they call political Islam. Okay, so can a religion be a political? Have you ever heard? I mean, look, go to Google and put political Islam, okay, and you see how much you have a hit. Last time I look is 45,000 hits. Okay, put political Christianity, put political Judaism. You see, it's almost not existing. So, a Pentecostal church in Brazil having 102 MP coming from Pentecostal church. A church 30 years ago, it constituted only 3% of the population of Brazil. But I mean, it become a major church. I mean, anyone in Brazil talk about political Pentecostalism. So in fact, it's really, again, it's part of the Islamophobia. I think any religion has a right to moralize public action, and my word. I mean, moralizing, it means I don't ask religion to do political actions. You need to distinguish between political action and religious action. So I'm not, etc. But if you like, morality can one of the source of morality of people, we sociologists, we know, is the religion. Go to the value world value survey to realize this. So why not Muslim cannot moralize political actions? Why we will treat anyone who say something and part of the association that is a Muslim Brotherhood, and in fact Muslim Brotherhood is not at all a very important group in France, but it's, if you like, it's a prejudiced people. Even Florence Berger-Blacard in his book le réseau frériste en Europe, she declared recently that in fact it's too late to salvage the Muslim community in Europe. They are all Muslim Brotherhood. So it's in some way by banning political Islam, they ban any expression of ritual things in the public sphere. Fifth, secularism, where the foreign religion being co-opted by politics. In France, it's very interesting. When the first time the French authority wanted to organize Islam as a religion, like Judaism, like Protestantism, it was in the time of Sarkozy. He imposed the third of the names to be imposed by him. Okay, so already in the game of the election, he put not important people, one member to elect. So it was a lot of game on it, and this showed that in fact this fear to have a serious representativity of Islam in France, and Emmanuel Macron do the same currently. So again, state neutrality necessitate a religious autonomy. This is really very important. As far as there is no religious autonomy, secularism is just a joke. Okay. Let me move to the conclusion. First, if we understand the liberal project thinly, it means that simply how to balance between freedom and equality. This is what should be saved, if you like. Why I talk about thinly understood? Because liberalism now take different form, including thick theory, where you have an excessive individualism. Sometimes there's no balance between communitarian and individual rights. I'm so glad to discover from talking with my colleague here in this university how community matter for dealing with the refugee, with the migrant issue. I think already you are in a balance between communitarian and individual liberalism. So if we take this liberal project, what I call thinly understood, this is what we need to save, and we need to tailor secularism to fit into, and to be sure that there is no imposition of a single conception of the good on society, neither in France by imposing unveiling, nor in Iran where imposing veiling. So for me, Iran and France concerning the veil, they are absolutely in the same position, authoritarian position of the state and violation of liberal values. So I think we need to, if now I'm addressing to sociologies, if really we want our message to be mattered, we need to avoid alienating conservative and religious groups. It means that our message should go in two levels. First level, what I call mediations. It means that we provide knowledge to civil society actors. And when I talk about civil society, in a sense of Geoffrey Alexander, civil sphere, rather. It's where family, business is within civil society. It's not only non-governmental organization, political party, and so on. So so we need first to provide research to mediate between these different voices. And in the second stage, we can have a strong normativity. A strong normativity, it means that sociology, like social science, should be defending marginalized people, should be defending LGBTQ as a vulnerable group, should be defend the poor, should be defend and so on. Okay, so in a second stage where we have a strong normativity where we can utter it. We can say veil means slaving of Muslim women. We can say it in a second stage, but you cannot impose it. You cannot come and you say we need this kind of policy. And I have so much evidence. Just read the last book of Gilles Kepel or Bernard Rougier or Florence Berger-Blacquart, how they conflate this two level of mediation and normativity. So I like a lot the work of Tariq Madood in UK about his concept of multicultural secularism. I think it's a very important. The issue is how you keep if you like, the autonomy of religious institution, the certain autonomy of community, but always under the sight of the state as the ultimate arbiter of protecting the liberal project, protecting the minimal standard of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So I'm not at all advocating of, if you like, we need always a minimal effort of secularism and as a political project, as much as secularization from below, as a process of believing on science, etc., etc. So this is, if you like, what I argue for. Maybe I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Professor Hanafi, for this excellent lecture. So now it's time for Q&A or comments you want to share with Professor Hanafi.
You agree with me, apparently. I doubt if I agree with myself. I try to be provocative just to listen to you.
Yeah, you're provocative, so to use it. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Although I missed some points, I mean, in your argumentation, there were so many aspects. I mean, there were so many ramifications in what you were saying that I don't know whether, at some points, I didn't know whether I was convinced of what you were actually tackling in your presentation. It appeared to me that you were, instead of talking about secularism or even symbolic liberalism, that you were rather more focused on the particularities of France. And in my view, France, to this respect, is quite, I would even say it's quite an exception. Wouldn't you agree with me? It is more rather an exception than actually the standard case in comparison with many other countries in the world. Most actually countries have a particular history where religion, a particular religion or even a set of religions are connected to political authorities, and they still keep on somehow that connection, even though they've accepted and they've entered, so to speak, the liberal world, and they have liberal democratic, even when they take Sweden, take Spain, take Great Britain, at least these three countries, or take the United States, religion is quite embedded in the structural organization of the state. So there hasn't been that extraordinary history that France has undertaken in connection with religion, where religion has been, at least there have been those attempts of leaving religion and religious aspects aside. And that's my first question. You were talking about something, apparently a general concept, a kind of a political or even a philosophical current, namely symbolic liberalism. But then once and again, you were referring, and I could understand what you were saying by putting into the picture France and only France. So my second question is, how would that affect other countries? Take Spain or take even Catalonia. You've come to one of, according to some offices here in either Catalonia or in Spain, in one of the most secularized countries in the world. And it has been secularized to a high speed level. So in 40, 50 years has been a tremendous and very quick process of a secularization in a sociological sense. Religion has hardly, today, religion has hardly any role in our common and civic and political activities. Most young people here have not been baptized. I don't know whether have. Most of them have never been. Most of them have attended only once, I don't know, to attend a marriage or something like this to churches. So Catholicism, and Spain is the Catholic country in the world, Catholicism has disappeared from our lives. My question is, would symbolic liberalism fit into our particular history, the Spanish or Catalan history? I'm not sure about that. So this is just.
Thank you so much. Really, it's amazing 2 points. First of all, so what, if you like, what I try to argue so far is the following: that you have a crisis of migration. This crisis of migration inflict in political discourse. I'm talking about Europe, particularly now, and with it we see the surge of the right and far right parties, political parties. What I try to say in this, that in fact, in order to understand it, of course there is other factors. There is migrant really mess up sometimes in the public life. There is foreign fighters, ISIS example. There is Marie Le Pen is the easy way to grab the political echelon is to use identity politics and to scapegoat the other. Okay, what I'm trying to say that in fact historically the liberal democracy was sufficiently strong that it is capable of handling a democratic life, a kind of a public spheres where you have a reasonable debate, despite all these radicals, okay, whether come from the left or come from the right, but particularly from the right, if you like. So now liberal democracy is very vulnerable because of liberals, and liberals, they are not anymore liberals, so they violate their own the political liberalism, if you like. So this global statement come from if you like hundreds of talks I gave in multiple spot in the world as a vice president and president of the International Sociological Association. So I observe this what I labeled as a symbolic liberalism, and I observe it in a different degrees, and really sometimes doesn't have meanings. And you are absolutely right to say the way I described a relationship between secularism and religion doesn't match at all in a specific area. So it's absolutely correct. However, let me give some element how I think particularly about Europe and about secularism in Europe. First, I was giving a talk in a seminar about religion and secularism, and you have 3 years ago. And when I did my presentation about the French secularism, so and in that time I don't talk at all but French secularism. So I have many scholars, including Neufler Golay. Neufler Golay is a Turkish scholar, so she is a friend and colleague based in Al-OHSS, who was working on sociology of religion for ages, where she told me, Sari, I have a bad news for you. Everything you talk is in a different degree, you find it in Europe. And in fact, in the Q&A, I mean, let's take a specific example. I mean, now, last month, Danish ban veil in the public office and etc. Denmark, is an example of really a very soft secularism, a country where the president should be from the church of Denmark, etc. So in many countries, you mentioned Sweden. Sweden, I mean, again, my book has 4 case studies. One of the case studies about Sweden. Sweden, you have every year 4,000 kids, from 4,000 to 5,000 kids removed from their family and placed in forcefully to other family. When you look, everyone, the state doesn't provide a statistic by ethnicity, but the interviews I did, they told you most of them, they are migrant from Africa, from the Middle East, from Latin America. So there is, I mean, one of the case in Sweden why a kid was removed because his dad is a pastor, okay, an African pastor, and this pastor, the kids ask his dad whether homosexuality is bad or good. Okay, so it's a very interesting. The question is by itself, it's bad and good. It's a conception of the good, if you like. Okay, so the pastor reply, in our religion, the good sexuality is a heterosexuality, and this was one of the major reasons of removing kids from place to from this family to another family. So this no, it was an incident, and the social worker was observing the family, and if you like, one of the reason why, one of the major reason. I mean, this is a research done by 2 anthropologists in Sweden who report this ethnographically, the whole case. I mean, they review the whole case of etc. In any case, you have so much talk in human rights organization against the stigma and clearly against an ethnic group, etc. So even Sweden, I would say, they really this how their secularism is nourished by a kind of a Swedish-centric or Swedish cultural majoritarianism. So again, I can I can bring, I, what I argue, if you like, we don't disagree about the first point. I think, thanks God that countries resisting this, and in a different degrees, and resisting this kind of secularism as a religion against the minority religion. So I see there is a resistance, but I do believe that more and more under the Islamophobia, there is a trend of harassing Muslim minority in the name of the secularism, and not in the name of religion. The other, when about if you like, your second point confirmed my analysis that in fact the problem with this, if you like, problematic relation to migrants is not due to the fact that people are religious. So you may have a case where you don't have a thin religion, but you have, in the name of secularism, that there is a push, if you like, of stigmatizing the other. And if you look to the statistics in Catalonia, the arrival of a far right-wing political party, Catalan, is a new, and with this demise of the religion. So this is, if you like, again, I think what I'm trying to say that we need to see how secularism become a religion, hindering minority religion to express its place. That's it. No matter what is the religiosity of these people. This is, if you like, what I'm trying to say.
More comments, questions? Yeah, connected to this debate, for example, there is a very interesting and worrisome issue, that is the increase of the far right here in Catalonia, clearly, that is using this way of dehumanizing the other, especially people from Muslim people, and it's very worrisome when there are some interventions and actions that are taking place in some localities, especially one locality governed by the far right, that is putting into practice this French secularism into place here in Catalonia. So it's not a question of religion, but it's a question of how this secularism is also taken by the far right, no, as a process to exclude the other, no. And there are several examples. One is, for example, forbidding the burkini, or the bath clothes in the swimming pool, while at the same time allowing topless, no? Like it's like trying to be more open, but closing to, especially to some minorities, no? Permissive with ones and exclusive with others, no? And what are your things about these issues? Do you see parallelisms with French? It's not, we are not in France, we are not having this same context, but there are some parallelisms and the possibility to grow in this context.
Thank you so much. In fact, if we look to the World Value Survey and to the work of Rob Engelhardt and Pipa, their book about where they analyze the world the World Survey, the World Value Survey, the long durée, they argue that there is a transformation of conservative parties, that in fact about basic right for abortion, for women rights, about accepting gay, etc. More and more, the difference between left, liberal versus conservative, Republican, no matter what you call it, is the gap is going narrower and narrower and narrower. Where you don't, where you have a problem is where some claims of a young generation vis-a-vis the older generation. So what they try to say that now is more generational things than left and right. And in generational issues, it become like, for instance, how much I mean, family, the older generation, they resist the demise of the family authorities, for instance, while the young, I mean, they care less about, for instance, gender fluidity. I mean, whether society is composed by male, female, and some trans, or we can be or fluid, something like that. So here where the difference persists, if you like. Why I am saying this is that historically the custodian of secularism have been the left, and the right is related to church, to etc. But more and more is really left and right. They hold this hard secularism. If I talk about France, so yes, we have the same thing, convergence of the right and the left on this secularism. Why but for different reason, but for different accent on reason. But I think what I'm trying to say that Islamophobia become really this is the common factors that explain both the left and the right, how they converge on secularism. So I am I don't know the case of Spain to talk in the front of the Spanish people, but just to say that my feeling this that you find it the same thing in many places. I would say in Belgium, in Denmark. I mean, who voted for the last law banning? It's left and the left and the far right, and less from the right. It's a very interesting. So the right has become more tolerant than the left in Denmark. So.
Thank you. There's a question here.
So as I understood, the religion became private, but before that it was a mechanism for social structure. I mean, the religion managed the people, so they will act as religion says.
As
religion says. So
religion state. Okay. See.
And now with the new liberties as sexual liberties, do you think that new sexual liberties became the new form of social management? As in, before that we have the religion saying what we have to do, and now those liberties became the new religion. You got me?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Actually, let me talk about a chapter of the book, and then I will come directly to reply to you. So I have a chapter called Sexual and Gender Diversity, Embracing versus Celebrating. So, if you like, in liberal conception of the balance between freedom and equality, we need all to embrace gender and sexual diversity, and not to discriminate against any group. Okay, so the embracing, but we are not. We should not force people to celebrate all form of sexuality. For instance, the example in my mind also in France, when the football player Abdelkader something for Khilkhal, I think his name, last year when he refused to wear the LGBTQ kit, if you like, the Rambo flag kit, he make it clear in a tweet that I don't, I have nothing against LGBTQ community, but I don't see myself promoting their cause, something like that. So this is and what happened to him? It was a warning, and it was a debate in the media asking the Saint-Germain club to sack him. Okay, that so if you like, here where today the problem that in fact more and more our late modernity and under this symbolic liberals I criticize, they want to impose that everyone to have the same conception of the good. I think they have right. I'm in favor. Me as a liberal say we need to be sure that no one will discriminate against any sexual orientation, and even more. I mean, to be sensitive to about vulnerability of minority behavior, if you like. So, but this is conception of justice. While people can say, I want to educate my kids on a specific form of sexuality, and I don't want the state or the schools to impose curriculum where they told them that there is no anymore man and woman, but a gender fluidity, for instance. This is a conception of the good that so here where I see, if you like, the analogy I did between how our late modernity allow a certain expression of the good, like topless, the example of Oscar, and not other form of the conception of the good, because we smell from this that this religious expression, that the woman who will put the burkini, that is a religious expression that we will ban, while topless we don't have a suspicion of a religious practice or religious induced behavior, so we will allow it. Here where there is a problem, if you like. It's if I have time, at my university, an American University of Beirut, it was very interesting, a debate in the last year about, if you like, the university constructing new building they put all gender bathroom, okay? And in fact, when I asked, and then some students went and publicly to say, how come in the last 2-3 years we ask for a prayer room, even for all religion, and you didn't allow it, but you allow a bathroom for all gender? In American University of this, when there's a claim for a room for a pray, it was signed by 1,000 students. We have 10,000 students, okay? While, I mean, in the debate, when I hear it, they said, how many trans we have at AUB? 1 or 2? In any case, we don't know them. In any case, it's not visible. But maybe not. So, and then you accommodate them, but you don't accommodate us who want a prayer room. So you see this kind of the tension I show. I mean, how this is where I argue that symbolic liberalism is not anymore. I mean, has so amnesty with religious people that that really it's more and more hostile to them and incapable of influencing them. This is why people move from the left to the right. It's not only so you see, I mean, this is what I'm trying to say, that it's a very dangerous game what we are witnessing now. What is allowed to be in the public and what is allowed to be in the private. I mean, as a liberal, I think as far as the conception of the good doesn't harm the other, should be in the public spheres. As simple as that. I mean, all gender bathroom doesn't harm anyone, so it should be there. And the same thing, a prayer room, I mean, doesn't harm anyone, so it should be there. So if you like, this is what I try to say.
Thank you so much. We could talk for hours around this interesting topic. Thank you, Professor Hanafi, for being with us, and thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.